Let's start with a really expensive question. Why do businesses pour fortunes into driving traffic only to have their sales just silently bleed out on the landing page? What if the key to getting the highest conversion possible wasn't about a better offer, but about ruthlessly eliminating one single correctable flaw? Today, we are going to deconstruct one of the most persistent, most costly problems in all of digital marketing, the failure of the landing page. We're going to find out why perfectly good traffic, people you paid good money to attract, so often just evaporates into thin air the second they arrive. And, more importantly, we're going to see how to fix it with a framework that is just ruthlessly simple and effective.
This gets right to the heart of a massive, silent problem. Just think about it for a second. Companies spend countless hours and, a ton of money perfecting their ads, targeting their audience, getting those clicks. They literally get people to walk up to the front door only to have them turn right around and leave without saying a word. And this isn't some small leak we're talking about, it's a hemorrhage of potential revenue. It's happening quietly on millions of web pages every single day. The critical flaw? It's not in the traffic, it's in the architecture of the destination itself. It's this really counterintuitive idea that to get more, you actually have to offer less. Fewer choices, fewer links, and way, way fewer distractions.
And the scale of this problem? It's just staggering. 70%. Analysis shows time and time again that over 70% of potential revenue is lost right here at this exact point of decision. So let's put that in perspective, okay? For every $10,000 you spend on ads, $7,000 of it just vanishes the moment someone hits your page. Gone. And it's not because the ad was bad or the product was no good. It's lost because the page itself introduced confusion, distraction, or friction. The page's own complexity becomes the single biggest obstacle to the sale. It's literally sabotaging the very investment that brought the visitor there in the first place.
All right, so here's our roadmap for solving this puzzle. First, we're going to pinpoint this silent revenue killer and really understand the economic crisis that forced this whole new way of thinking. Then, we'll pop the hood on the conversion engine to see exactly how it works. We'll dive deep into the psychology that makes it all tick, lay out the clarity framework for you to use, and finally, we'll boil it all down to its core philosophy, creating the path of least resistance.
So let's start with this silent revenue killer and what we call the paradox of the leaky funnel. We like to imagine a sales funnel as this smooth, simple path straight down to a purchase. But in reality, most landing pages are just riddled with holes. Every unnecessary link in the navigation, every social media icon, every tempting link to an About Us page, it's a potential exit. We add these things thinking we're providing value, right? Giving people more information. But what we're actually doing is building escape routes. And each one of those is a leak that lets the attention and the money you just paid for to drain away, absolutely destroying your return on investment before your offer even gets a fair shot.
So where did this intense focus on plugging every single leak come from? Well, it wasn't just some clever design idea somebody had one afternoon. It was born out of a crisis, specifically the high-cost traffic crisis. See, in the early days of digital ads, traffic was cheap. You could buy a click for pennies. But as platforms like Google and Facebook got more and more competitive, the cost to acquire a customer, what we call the CAC, it just started to soar. A 2% conversion rate, which might have been fine before, suddenly became completely unsustainable when every single click costs a premium. This economic pressure forced a huge shift. It wasn't good enough to just get traffic anymore. You had to convert it with surgical precision. It became absolutely essential to get the maximum return from every single person who visited.
And that surgical approach? It's built on one single foundational concept, the attention ratio. Now, this is just the ratio of things a user can do on your page versus the one thing you want them to do. Think about a typical homepage. The attention ratio might be 20 to 1? You've got a navigation bar, a footer, links to blog posts, a dozen different paths. For maximum conversion, the attention ratio has to be 1 to 1. One page, one goal, one primary call to action button. That's it. Full stop. Anything else is a distraction that is actively working against you. The entire objective is to make the action you want them to take the most obvious and the easiest path forward.
Okay, so the second non-negotiable rule is message match. Imagine you click an ad that promises 50% off all winter coats, but the page you land on just says, "Welcome to our outdoor store." Your brain immediately hits the brakes. There's this moment of confusion, of friction. You've lost the scent of the trail. Message match eliminates this problem entirely. The headline of the landing page has to perfectly mirror the promise of the ad. It creates this instant psychological consistency, and it confirms to the visitor, yes, you're in the right place, the promise that brought you here is about to be fulfilled. It is the first and honestly, the most critical step in building trust.
So how do these two big principles, the one-to-one attention ratio and message match, actually come together? Well, they form the core of what we call the conversion engine. And you should think of this not as just a static page, but as a sequential system. It's a machine designed to do three things in a very specific order: maximize clarity, build trust, and then, and only then, secure a commitment. It's a deliberate, step-by-step process that guides the visitor from curiosity to action, without any detours and without any leaks.
And here are the three core stages of that engine. Step 1, like we just talked about, is instant relevance through perfect message match. The headline immediately confirms to the user that they made a good click. Step 2 is the value hierarchy. This is where you strategically guide the user's focus through your argument, from the main benefit to the reasons they should trust you. And finally, step 3 is frictionless commitment. After you've made your case, you present a single, clear path forward, enforcing that crucial one-to-one attention ratio.
Let's break down that value hierarchy a little more, because the order here is everything. It's not random. It starts with the headline. That's the promise from the ad. Right after that comes the core benefit, the direct answer to the user's unspoken question, what's in it for me? Once they get the value, you introduce social proof, testimonials, case studies, logos, to answer their next question, okay, but why should I trust you? Only after you have delivered the promise, explain the benefit, and establish that trust, only then do you present the call to action, the single, clear next step.
So, we've seen the what and the how, but the real power, the reason this all works so well, comes from understanding the why. This entire system is incredibly effective because it's built on deep, predictable principles of human psychology. And this isn't about tricking people. It's about aligning with how our brains are naturally wired to make decisions, especially when we're a little bit uncertain.
The number one enemy of conversion is and always will be distraction. This brings us to something called cognitive load theory. Now, put simply, think of your brain's attention like the RAM on your computer. It has a finite amount of mental energy at any given moment. A cluttered page with a dozen different options, all those leaks in the funnel we talked about, it forces the brain to spend that precious energy just trying to figure out the layout. A focused design with a one-to-one attention ratio, it removes all that work. It preserves the user's mental energy and directs it entirely toward one single task: evaluating your offer.
The other key psychological force at play here is loss aversion. We are all fundamentally wired to feel the pain of a loss way more than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. I mean, losing 20 bucks feels way worse than finding 20 bucks feels good, right? So for a user on your landing page, the biggest potential loss is wasting their money or their time on a bad decision. And this is exactly why social proof and guarantees aren't just decorative elements. They are critical conversion tools. Testimonials, star ratings, money-back guarantees, they directly fight loss aversion by lowering the perceived risk. They make the decision to say yes feel safe.
Okay, we've covered the theory. Now let's move from the abstract to the actionable with the clarity framework. This is the blueprint. This is how you put all these principles into practice. This is how you transform your page from a confusing labyrinth into a high-performance conversion tool.
And honestly, nothing illustrates this framework better than this direct comparison. On the left, you've got the typical homepage. It's a labyrinth. It's trying to be everything to everyone. New visitors, existing customers, maybe job seekers. It has multiple goals, a full navigation bar. It's a mess. But on the right, you have the landing page. It functions as a runway. It has one single goal: take off. There's no navigation, there are no escape routes, and there's only one call to action. Its sole purpose is to get the visitor to their intended destination with zero distractions.
So this brings us to the 3 essential commands for mastery. Okay, first, enforce the one-to-one ratio. And I mean be ruthless. Rip out the main navigation, the footer links, anything that doesn't serve that single conversion goal. Second, achieve instant message match. I mean it. Go look at your ad copy right now and make sure your landing page headline reflects that promise exactly. And third, design your hero section. That's the very first thing people see for trust. Anchor your social proof and core benefits right there at the top to dismantle skepticism from the very first second.
And this brings us to the core insight. The whole philosophy boiled down to a single idea: the path of least resistance. This approach, it isn't just about minimalist design or some clever marketing trick. It's about a deep, fundamental understanding of the human need for clarity. It's about making the decision you want them to make the easiest decision possible for them to make.
You know, this whole system works because it applies cold, hard logic to a profound human need.
When a person clicks your ad, they aren't looking for a research project. They are looking for a clear, direct, and low-risk path to solving a problem they have. By eliminating distractions, by establishing immediate relevance, and by building this logical sequence of trust, you are providing that path. You are literally replacing their confusion with your confidence.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to think about. I want you to take a hard look at your own marketing efforts, your own landing pages. Are they designed to aggressively push people through a rigid, company-centric funnel? Or are they designed to gently and logically pull people toward the value you provide by making that path clear, simple, and trustworthy?
And that really is the ultimate takeaway. The best, most effective marketing feels less like selling and more like guiding. It doesn't create friction, it removes it. It pulls people toward value because it has systematically identified and eliminated every single path that could possibly lead to confusion. And in the architecture of conversion, clarity is everything.